So you may have just bought your brand new e-mountain bike, or maybe you're thinking about getting one. And as with everything in life, there's a few wants and a few needs. So today, here's a few things you definitely need for your e-mountain bike. Right, before we get into the bigger items, let's take a look at the bare essentials. Now, one item I use more than anything on my e-mountain bike is going to be a good chain lube, or you can use chain wax too. Thing is, e-mountain bikes love eating drivetrains, so just make sure you're protected. Now, a comfortable seat is something you're definitely going to need on your e-mountain bike. You want to look out for that raised rear on the back of the seat, and of course the long rails. Just make sure your butt's protected. If it's not, you're going to have a hard time. And decent brakes are going to make a huge difference on your e-mountain bike, and something you're definitely going to need. Think about sintered pads, bigger rotors, all going to make the difference on those steeper descents. And don't forget, all that weight is going to take a hell of a lot of stopping. And lastly, we all charge our e-bikes in different ways, and if your battery is demountable, you're going to have all sorts of ways of charging your battery up. Some of those batteries will need adapters to charge them out of the bike, and of course, don't forget the faithful extension lead. If you haven't got a van or a big car to transport your bike to the trails, then you need to think about how you're going to get your bike there. A few different options here is going to be roof bars or a rack that mounts on the back of your car. Now, these usually aren't up to the job of carrying e-bikes. Roof bars are definitely going to be out of the equation, and so is a rack that isn't tow bar mounted. Usually these are only going to be strong enough to carry one e-bike on there, so you need to check that weight certification before you set off with your brand new pride and joy on the back of your car. And there's loads of different options out there from all the biggest bike rack manufacturers that will be capable of carrying an e-bike. Now, most e-mountain bike chargers will have a shut-off after they've finished charging, but a great thing to buy for your e-bike for not a lot of cash is going to be a digital or analog plug-in timer that is going to start and stop the electricity that goes into that charger. Now, the great thing about these plug-in timers is that some electricity suppliers will actually have a peak and an off-peak tariff, meaning you can charge your bike for less in the middle of the night. You're also going to be safe in the knowledge if you leave that e-bike turned on for long periods of time, it's not going to do any harm to your battery. And also, if there's a fault with that charger, there's not going to be a potential fire happening in the garage or in your shed. An e-bike sadly isn't only desirable to yourself. E-bike theft is definitely a problem out there, so you just want to be the safest that you possibly can be. So stay protected. Think about as many locks as possible, get alarms on your garage, ground anchors, and also, if you can afford it, CCTV could really save the day. Just make sure your e-bike is insured properly too, and don't assume that it's going to be covered under your home policy. And one last thing, I definitely would not be leaving my e-bike outside locked up. That is definitely asking for trouble. Now, your e-mountain bike loves eating drivetrains, and an essential tool that you're going to need in your toolbox is going to be a chain checker. This is super simple to use and fairly cheap too. All it does is measures that wear on your chain and let you know when that chain has passed its sell-by date before it takes out your chain ring and your cassette. And of course, buying a chain is a lot cheaper than buying all those other components. If you use a chain checker and you clean and lube your chain up lots, it's going to last a load of miles. With your new e-bike, you're guaranteed to get out there on some epic rides. You're definitely going to need some kit in your riding pack to save your bacon if something was to go wrong. Now, common failures on an e-bike is going to be the snapped chain, so just make sure you've got some quick links in your bag and of course a chain tool to protect it. Now, when it comes to those punches, you're going to need a pump, you're going to need a spare inner tube, and of course some tire plugs, maybe some extra sealant and a tire boot too. And even if you are running tubeless, you still need to be taking all this kit too. Now, you might want to keep going on those longer rides, and the only way you're going to do this is by carrying a spare battery if your bike doesn't have a range extender built into your bike. Now, the best way of doing this is by using a specific e-mountain bike backpack. And one of our favorites here on EMBN is the Evoc E-Ride, but there's plenty of other bags out there from the likes of Ergon, XLC and Thomas. So just make sure you get the right one that suits you and your budget. Now, within this, you've got a padded area that's going to keep that battery nice and secure, especially in that event of an accident. It's not going to go flying out. On the back of the bag, you've also got some spine protection. If you were to fall on your battery, hopefully it's not going to cause you too much damage too. Yep, you can put that battery in a standard backpack, but I really wouldn't advise that, particularly in the case of a bad crash. And lastly, a bit of rain and mud won't stop you from getting out on your e-bike, so just make sure you've got the right kit for getting out there in the worst conditions. Think about getting a decent waterproof jacket that is made for cycling. Underneath that, a jersey and a base layer is going to make a world of difference, as well as some full finger gloves. And for your lower half, you definitely want to be wearing a chamois or a padded liner as some shorts to protect your bum. Don't forget you're going to be sat in your saddle a lot on your e-mountain bike. Then some shorts and some decent waterproof trousers, some cycling specific footwear, some sticky soles on there. It's going to make a world of difference keeping your feet on the pedals. And lastly, a mud guard on the front is going to keep you protected from absolutely everything Mother Nature is going to throw at you. So there you have it, everything you need for your e-mountain bike. And if we've left anything out, get involved in the comments box down below the video. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you subscribe to us here on the eMBN, and we shall see you out there on the trails.